It's cost me a lot of money and probably a bit of pride.
Yeah.
Hello and welcome along to the Let's Talk Racing YouTube channel in association with Racing TV. We're back. We are back full of highs, lows, and we're going to talk about all of it on this episode 1 of the Cheltenham 2025 Ante Post series. We are finally kicking off the series. We've sometimes gone too soon, but this year we're restraining ourselves. We're having 3 episodes. 1, the one you're watching now, 2 after Christmas, and 3 after the Dublin Racing Festival. Is there any Ante-Post value out there that we feel we're happy to get stuck into at this moment in time? Obviously, neither of us have ever ridden a horse. We're not absolute experts, but we're going to give you our opinions anyway, and we do hope you enjoy it. If you do, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and do get your comments down below. Horses that you fancy, let us know. But Andrew's flown in back from Dublin this morning purely for this?
Yeah, exactly. Just purely to get back on the LTR train.
Exactly. You've been at Fairyhouse over the last few days. How would you sum it up as a whole?
Slightly underwhelming. Good racing, very competitive racing. I think bar Lossiemouth, though, those grade 1s you'd look at and you were maybe perhaps expecting slightly different results. Now we saw some really good horses, maybe coming from races that we weren't maybe expecting. So really good weekend, really enjoy it. Plenty of LTR fans there. So anyone that did come up, thank you very much for doing so. Really enjoyed it. And yeah, no, it was a good 2 days, informative. And of course with Newbury and Newcastle over here, we had plenty of clues.
Absolutely. We are going to quickly fire on with a couple of performances from Newcastle and Newbury before we get to Fairyhouse. And we will do our Ante-Post section at the end as well as best bets. But at Newcastle, the big talking point was Sergino versus Mystical Power. Mystical Power very disappointing, and Sergino got the job done. Is it a case of maybe people are getting overexcited, or is Sergino the real deal?
I think probably in between. Mystical Power was never going at all. You'd have thought, if anything, Mystical Power would be too keen. He was behind the bridle. He had to be ridden away, I think, from the 4th hurdle. You knew your goose was cooked if you were on him. That being said, he's put Lump Sum away by 10 lengths. And I know people will say, oh, well, Lump Sum would need to start tomorrow in a champion hurdle. But he's an improving horse, and he brings a lot of nice form lines to the table. And he really, really went and smashed him by the end of it. His jumping was better than it was last year, which is a bonus, even though it perhaps got better as the race went on. I think he's a very creditable horse in that champion hurdle picture. Whether he's the winner in waiting, probably not.
Well, we'll speak about the division after we speak about Fairyhouse a little bit later on, so I'm sorry to stop you there.
No, don't you worry.
Newbury, I suppose the big talking point with regards to Cheltenham races, well, there's 2. Regent Stroll looked good, and so did the Jukebox Man. They were possibly 2 Cheltenham Festival hopes, anyway, for this side of the Irish Sea. What did you think of both of them?
Both very good. Regent Stroll was excellent, bar kind of one mistake at 2 out. It was impressive how he latched back on the bridle, though, after that. I thought that was very nice. We'll know more about him next time out. Not quite sure whether he'd be a Cheltenham horse. Jukebox Man, I love the Jukebox Man. That was a fantastic jumping performance.
It was.
He's a brave horse.
He's a very brave horse. I don't want to say Master Tommy Tucker.
Oh, no.
Because he's got more ability than him, I think. But he's going to have to restrain that exuberance at some point.
I'd be worried with him at the only race at Cheltenham Forum is the 3-miler, and he wouldn't get home in a car running like that.
No.
At the weekend. He'd have been all over that, the old 2.5 mile race, unfortunately. He's really good. He's a grade 1 horse, I believe. Probably a horse for Aintree. Mm-hmm. He'll run at Cheltenham, but he's got more chance of winning a grade 1 at Aintree.
Captain Teague was disappointing in that race, but Paul Nicholls had another winner over the weekend in a novice chase, and that was Coldboy Potter. Obviously, exchanged hands for massive money. He ran at Carlisle in a 2-mile novices chase. What did you think of him?
Yeah, he was good. He was, again, exuberant, especially at his early fences. It was a competitive novice handicap for what it was. Carlisle's a stiff track to jump first time out. We saw that with Caliph de Burlay coming down only a month or so ago. It can take some jumping. So, yeah, no, I thought he was all in all very impressive. Unfortunately for a horse like that, he could win 2 Gold Cups. People are still going to be giving out about him.
Yeah, I'm not necessarily sure he's going to be a 2-miler, though. I think he's going to be 2.5 to 3. Suspect he could run in the Silly Isles. He did jump out to his left the whole way around, and Harry got off him and did say, he did mention that he'd probably try to keep him left-handed if he could, so that's interesting.
The races aren't really there left-handed.
No, but he also needs bottomless ground as well.
Yeah.
And
I
you
just
might not get that at Aintree, or it's going to be difficult.
I'd have thought that Sandown race, they'll run in it.
Yeah.
Whether he's good enough, going right-handed to win in it, I don't know, but they'll run in something like that.
Fairyhouse then. Let's get on to the Saturday first. And the first race of the meeting was Ante Post's chasing debut. I get the impression you were a little bit downbeat about it.
I wasn't downbeat. I just thought it was workmanlike. Obviously, the winning distance was enhanced by the two horses falling at the last. Unfortunately, a pretty tragic incident at the last involving Jack Kennedy in 203. He was scruffy to start with, certainly.
Yeah, I thought his jumping did warm up.
Yeah.
The quicker they went, the better he seemed to be, because maybe his mind was just made up for him.
Perhaps so, and you'd be wanting to hope that, and maybe going up in class next time out more than anything, we'll see more. It didn't strike me, certainly, like a horse that was, gagging for going back down to 2 miles, but...
I disagree. I think he looked a speed horse. You've came home saying he looks like a 3-miler. I've come home going, I think he's 2.
No, well, I don't know. I just thought he looked sluggish.
Okay.
And whether that's just first time out, you can forgive a horse for being a little bit sluggish first time out. But considering he was a horse that was hard on the bridle last year, I didn't feel at any stage he was hard on the bridle.
No, maybe not. I thought when Townend kind of asked the question turning for home, he did pick up really well. I was quite impressed. But we're fine to disagree. It's fine.
That's part of the game.
Anzadam came back in the 4-year-old hurdle, the Willow Warm hurdle. That's almost replaced the Fishery Lane at this point, hasn't it?
It has.
Carla Conti finished second, ran to probably what she's good, or what she can produce. He's interesting, isn't he?
This was smart, I thought.
What do they do with him?
Well, they're going to have to campaign him and probably along the lines of being a champion hurdle horse. Whether he's up to that, I'm not so sure.
Did softly approach, like try and find maybe an international, that kind of race?
Yeah, something like that, where you can try and find I'm not sure whether the race is still there, but there's a grade 3 2-mile race down at Limerick at the Christmas Festival for 4-year-olds. I'm not sure whether they maybe think that in. I don't know whether he needs deep ground. He won on heavy ground at France. It was decent enough ground on the weekend, so that's a positive. I just think Carla Conti's rated 138. I don't think she ran far off that. And he kicked her out of the way, and she was getting a mare's allowance for it as well. She probably does need to step up in trip, especially on good ground. But this was really taking, I thought. He was the unexposed horse going into the race. I didn't fancy him. Didn't really know what to think of him. But he was good.
He was good. The horse not so good was in the bumper. Marjack's Hill. Very disappointing.
Talk me through it.
To be honest, I was really, really chuffed before the race because Gordon kind of came out on Racing TV and said, we think he's very, very good. He's flashy at home. He said it doesn't always translate to the tracks, but we're very hopeful. It looked a good race on paper. I thought U-Proof probably added some excitement because it's a Willie Mullins, Patrick Mullins double green horse. For 80% of the race, I was over the moon. I thought he travelled really, really well. He looked a big galloping horse. I thought when returning for home, when he was asked the question, I thought he would pick up, and it would just be a case of once he got there, he'd sustain it to the line, and he just really was disappointing.
He was.
Yeah, he was.
Unfortunately, I said it on our Let's Talk Racing column with Racing TV that I just thought if the two of them had gotten at it the way they got at it and this thing flew on the outside and just nailed him on the line, I could maybe make peace with it, that was just a little bit unfortunate. But the fact that the horse that was in front all the way got back up for second, that disappointed me. He was a bit soft in the finish.
Yeah, it's cost me a lot of money and probably a bit of pride. And if I had any sort of reputation before, that's now on the floor. So I can only apologise for you behind the camera if you did get involved. Obviously, we've had some go right, we've had some go wrong, and it happens.
You've got to relay what you're getting told. There's been plenty of good, people will very quickly forget the Facile Vega and the Vauban's.
I felt like I couldn't necessarily win massively because I thought if he goes and is really impressive and then I turn around and go, well, I knew the whole time and I hadn't let the people know, then I'd look like a right plank. Whether if I do let the people know and he's really disappointing, then what happens, and I'm really sorry if it cost you a few quid. It also cost me a few quid, so we're all in this one together, but hopefully we can get that back at some point. He won't be winning a champion bumper, he won't even be running in the race, so I'll be cash out if you possibly can. Fairyhouse Sunday, suppose the first one we probably have to talk about is Romeo Coolio getting beat.
Yeah, again, a little
In fact, no, we don't. Willie did Hugh. Let's go back.
Oh, yeah.
What do you think of him?
Ordinary.
Really?
Oh, dear me. People are there on Twitter trying to make excuses for this horse.
So Dan overall number one, leading the charge.
I tell you, I gave him a right telling off the other day. Because I don't know, because he hasn't even backed the horse or anything. He's putting up this, oh yeah, well done him, he's much better than that sort of thing. It was one of the worst juvenile hurdles I've ever seen in Ireland. And it's been won by a horse that had no intention of winning.
No.
And has just fallen in.
I say their hopes of a Boodles.
Joseph and the Mulryans are there going, no. But that was just the way the race was.
Yeah, I did think Willie DeHue did plenty wrong. And he wasn't beaten a million miles. I thought he could possibly improve from it a bit.
To me, he just looked like a more straightforward version of Batman Jirac.
Really?
I just thought he was really ordinary.
Romeo Coolio, what's the excuse? Got beat by Toonzavator.
Oh, dear me. Well, what was even worse is it was halfway down the back, and my dad turns to me and goes, Jesus, you want Toonzavator's no use, isn't he? Like, why is he here? Mm-hmm. And then we were looking at each other the last 100 yards going, oh.
The tricky thing is, I think Romeo Coolio jumps pretty well on the hole. He's quite safe, he's quite high, isn't he?
Yeah, he's not slick.
But he jumped pretty well, he travelled well, he got a nice run.
It was disappointing.
I don't really know why he didn't win.
No, me neither. I was kind of scratching my head. There wasn't necessarily anything you could pinpoint it to. I'd have thought, looking at him, that he'd have been fine on decent ground. I suppose maybe he wants a little bit more cut in the ground, but if you're scratching it...
So we were talking about Romeo Coolio with regards to Supremes down the line. Is this very much he can't win a Supreme with that performance, or are we still going to go, because I personally felt that he's just a horse who, I don't think he necessarily needs to go up in trip. I just think he needs to be he needs to run in a race which goes really hard, proper stamina test over 2, and something like the Grade 1 at Christmas could be that. Yeah,
well, I'd reserve judgment until then. I wouldn't necessarily be dancing up and down with my Supreme docket at the moment.
No, but I don't know whether I get 3 Stripe Life vibes from him, where he's going to be possibly a horse who can finish second or third in all these big Grade 1s over 2, and then turn up in an entry over 2.5 and really put in a performance.
Yeah, I think that's not a bad shout. I certainly think there's still a very good horse in there. There was a few, like as you can see looking through the entire card at Fairyhouse, there was an awful lot of anomalies in there, and maybe you can just give them the benefit of the doubt. I certainly wouldn't be kind of putting the horse in the bin just because of one bad run.
I wonder whether Gordon will look at him with something like the Formby at Aintree. I think that he'll see that as winnable. But then again, nothing's really come out of the woodwork in Ireland that's going to be massively impressive.
No, like I looked at the Supreme novices betting going into this for the Ante Post portion of this show, and there's kind of nothing that's really put its hand up. I tell you who was impressive, we won't really be talking about him much, but on Saturday was that Ballygunner Castle.
He was a very tough horse. He's not going to win a Cheltenham Festival race, is he? He's a very tough, gritty. I thought he was more like a Pipe Bartlett.
He's maybe a Bartlett, or I think he's a bit better than a Pipe horse.
Right, okay.
I thought he was nice.
Yeah,
but you wouldn't have a clue what race he was going to run.
The loose horse didn't give him a very easy time as well. He still put his head down to win, and he's had to tough it out twice now. So yeah, he's good. I know that you could still be a big fan of Croke Park.
Stop. People were coming up to me saying, "Oh, you love Croke Park." Yeah, well, not over 2.5 miles on good ground. He's the slowest horse on mankind.
I take it you didn't have a penny on at 22-1.
Not a hope.
Firefox and Hartwood. It was very much seen, I think, going into it as almost a match race. I know there was a couple of others in there that could have run well. The likes of Gorgeous Tom, Stella Story was taking out, but Firefox, I don't think he was given the most advantageous ride in the world, but I was slightly disappointed he couldn't go and win where he was in the field. Kind of flew home. I don't know.
It was very similar to me looking at the race. It gave me kind of complete flashbacks to Found a 50 in the race last year. That you kind of thought, well, everything's kind of gone right.
I think he's a better horse than Found a 50, isn't he?
Yeah. But at the same time, he might be in the same boat in terms of kind of knocking his head off brick walls until maybe he might go in one race somewhere, you know.
If there was a 2 mile 2 champion chase, he'd have a chance in a couple of years' time, but he might not be a 2 miler and he might not be a 2.5 miler.
I certainly would look at him the way he is at the moment, and I think the thing you'd have to try next is put him back down to 2 miles and try to
Go forward.
He's a quality jumper. He's the best jumper in the field. But he was just tame, you know, and I don't think, to be honest, if it was another 100 yards, he'd have finished fourth.
Yeah. No, I feel like I semi-contradicted myself there by saying it wasn't an advantageous ride, but I don't understand why he didn't win. I think they could have possibly made more use of him, but I still expected him and his class to get out of trouble, if you knew.
Once he got there at the last, he had a chance to go and win the race. Yeah. And he didn't take it.
Lossiemouth.
Oh.
She's so good.
She's very good.
She is so good. She beat Tiupu. She flattened the third or fourth last and then still went back on the bridle and just... We need to talk about her in the sense of... All right, let's get Tiupu out of the way.
I think...
Lose any credit?
No.
No.
I thought they'd loved that performance, to be honest.
Lossiemouth, State Man, Constitution Hill, Sergino, Amsterdam's put his name in there. There are a couple of us on the periphery, but that's mainly the 4, I'd say. Amsterdam's not in the conversation yet. Where do we sit with them? All right, let's go through them. Where do you think you'll see State Man next?
Matheson.
And then Irish champion.
Yeah.
Sergino?
Christmas Hurdle, maybe straight to the champion.
Lossiemouth.
Christmas Hurdle,
yeah.
Then straight to the champion.
You see, I'm leaning towards that. I think what will happen, I think Willie's flirted with the idea of the Christmas Hurdle. I think he almost has to run her there. There's not really anywhere else to run.
Well, not unless he wants to take on State Man, which he won't.
No. I think she'll go there. They did it before with Faheen. I think Nikki Henderson will not want to run a fragile Constitution Hill first time out against her. Nope. So I suspect he'll run Sergino there, and then Constitution Hill be given a bit of time and might bump into Amsterdam in the international hurdle on trials day. I suspect that's the way things will go. Right now, if you're going to have a bet in the race, let's say they were all of them were 2-1. Who would you back? Constitution Hill's 5s. Amsterdam's 50s. Is it a case of who's the most likely winner then?
I think probably at Cheltenham, just right at this moment in time, it is Lossiemouth.
I think so.
That being said, I do understand the people at the moment that are saying that she's a bad prize, because I don't think she's a very good prize. But if you're telling me every horse is the same price, she's the one. Well, I don't know. It's difficult. Now,
the one thing is she's not come off the bridle. She's quick. She jumps brilliantly. She's proven at Cheltenham twice, and she stays. There's not much that.
No, and I think she's actually going to be a better mare over 2 miles, to be honest. I think she's got so much speed. I think over 2.5, you have to kind of constantly conserve.
She might not be there yet, but she's similar to Annie Power, isn't she? In the sense of, I don't think she'd probably be out of a picture if she were going to go 3. Like, I think she'd possibly stay that far, but she's still so speedy. She's proven it over 2.5. She's really, really genuinely top class.
Yeah, like this comes to like people are giving out on Twitter that she only got a rating of 149 or something for the Hatton's Grace. Like who's making these ratings? Is it me and you in a blind man's room, kind of with white coats on?
Well, it's a Racing Post rating.
Yeah, like I don't know, some of those ratings make no sense to me. There's Paul Nolan horses getting ratings of 125 for winning Mickey Mouse 0 to 115 horses. So, I wouldn't be looking into that. I understand people will look at it and go, well, it was a crawl of a race against a 3-miler. She's picked up well, but she's absolutely kicked him out of the ground.
And she flattened that hurdle down.
And that horse has beaten Honeysuckle, has beaten Impere Pass, and is... I think a near-on certainty to win the Stayers Hurdle again, unless something goes wrong with them, because the Stayers division is trash.
She's a superstar. When Honeysuckle had everything going on with her, in the sense of winning everything, and she was just the queen of the sport, people were just infected by her. People were going to Fairy House to see her in the Hatton's Grace. They just wanted to see her. And I do feel like we could sit here in 2 or 3 years' time in a very similar position with Lossiemouth, having won multiple Hatton's Graces, possibly a champion hurdle or 2. She's just great. She's just very, very good.
I'd like to hope that's the case, and I think Rich Ritchie will want her
Yeah.
to run on Stephen's Day in Kempton. I think that would be good for the sport. If you had a race between her and Sergino,
But she won't be able to. He won't be able to give her £7.
No.
Will he have to this year? Yes, he will.
he will, yeah. No, unfortunately, in a Grade 1. And no,
He was good, but he's
I
not
would
that
agree
good.
with that, but what a race that is.
Oh yeah, brilliant race. Brilliant race.
Because you can conceivably go in and...
If Gino wins, he's an absolute superstar.
I think I'd be in Lossiemouth's camp in that type of a race, but I wouldn't have any issues with anybody that was making the Sergino case.
No, I wouldn't either.
Well, no, it sounds like you have issues. You just think this mare is 10 stone better than everything.
I think a year behind Lossiemouth in age, she's done it, and what she's done for him to give her £7 and win, I think then you go Sergino's going to win the champion hurdle.
Would she? It won't happen. But if she was to run in the Matheson against Stateman, do you think she'd do to Stateman what she did to Tiupo?
No, I think she'd win. I personally think she'd win. I know that Leopardstown is Stateman's.
It's his backyard.
It's his backyard. I just think that he would have to give her £7. I don't think there's possibly a horse that we've seen that isn't a fully fit and raring to go Constitution Hill that can do that, and we're not sure that he's going to get back to that. So I just think she's the best 2 mile hurdler around at the moment, and she's also going to get £7 from everyone else. I'd love to see her. I suppose we're not talking about brighter days ahead. She's probably going to go to the Christmas race as well. What a race we could have. Imagine, it's extremely unlikely. It's impossible, but you can dream. Imagine we turn up to Cheltenham. Brighter Days Ahead has had a ding-dong battle with Stateman at Christmas. Stateman then went and won the Irish champion, beating a lesser field.
Yeah.
Lossiemouth and Sergino have a ding-dong at Kempton.
Yep.
Constitution Hill comes back, wins the International, just beating Amsterdam.
25 lengths to third.
Yeah. And then all 6 of them go to the champion. What a time that would be.
Absolute chaos.
It'd be absolutely brilliant. In fact, you know what? 1,000 likes on this video and we'll make it happen. We'll find a way. Yeah, brilliant. Right, now we're going to move on to this weekend. Very, very brief, because I suppose the 2 big races at Sandown in the Tingle Creek looks like a John Bond formality.
Yeah, I'd like to think so. He'll have a few maybe different challengers to what he's used to. Won't just be Edwardstone again. Quilixios will come over. I'm yet to believe it until I see it with him, of him backing up runs. He's sometimes very good, sometimes a bit ordinary. I must say, I don't know why it is. I've got a complete love-in for JPR1.
Okay, right.
I'm not saying he would beat John Bond in a Tingle Creek or something. I just think he's a crack 2-miler.
Yeah.
I thought he was unbelievably good in the Howden Gold Cup. He jumped for fun. He travels really well. Doesn't really do a whole pile in front. I don't mind that one bit. I'd be very interested to see him run against you. I hope they take that engagement on rather than kind of shirk it and go to Kelso, and we'll see what he's made of.
Yeah, I think we could see a really impressive John Bond. I think he's going to improve quite a bit from Cheltenham.
Yeah.
I don't think that's not obviously telling anyone anything, but I'm really hoping that we see a bit of fireworks. In the novice race, Lure de Sud's favourite. Gordon might send a couple over to face him, but I think out of the British challengers, he's stand out.
Yeah, very much so. It would be nice to see Gordon run at least one of them, maybe down memory lane. Again, you need to see what down memory lane, could he back that up from what he did in a beginners. I think Touch Me Not's in there as well.
Yep.
I wouldn't say he'll run, but down memory lane is a good horse. I think he'd give a lead to Lotus Sud for 1.6 miles, and he'll go past him.
Yeah, I think we could have a decent horse there for Dan Skelton with the view to an Arkle. Right, over at Cork in Hillyway, we've got Energumene coming back. We do need to quickly touch on this. The last time we saw him in person, I don't think we were at Punchestown, were we, that year? No. I wasn't a believer in Energumene. I think we've discussed this on the podcast a few times. But that time at Cheltenham when he won the second champion chase, I just turned to you and went, I've just got this completely wrong. He's just a machine. He's coming back. He had a hind leg issue. It's slightly... I don't know anything about that. I'm not even going to pretend like I do. But 18 months off, and he's 10 turning 11 a month later.
Yep.
It's not like he's a spring chicken. As much as there's loads of stable confidence, do people need to possibly tread with caution?
Oh, definitely, yeah. No, look, you've no idea how good this horse is going to be on return from this type of an injury. As you say, we're no vets. We don't know how much it's going to have taken out of him. I'd be buoyed by the confidence.
Yep.
Because I do think they rarely miss when they're this kind of bullish. And he was the best in the business when he was around. I was a bit like you during his novice chase campaign. I was against him, and I just ended up kind of having to fall in love with him because he was just kept winning. I think he'll win the Hilly Way. I think he'll put himself back in the picture. Whether he's good enough to fight off the likes of your John Bond, Gaelic Warriors, the horses that have years on him, potentially not. But I'd like to think that come March, he'll still be in with a chance. And if he comes back to his best, I was reminiscing there watching Moscow Fly earlier at the airport. You know, if he comes back and wins a champion chase as an 11-year-old, it'll be some effort.
It would be some effort indeed. Right, I've got no best bets. Queen's Gamble. That was a tough watch. Your best bets for this weekend?
I do. I have three for you. I've got one at Friday at Sandown.
Yep.
The 3 mile novice chase. Resplendent Grey was up the tail of Highland last time out at Cheltenham at the November meeting. A little bit unlucky in a slowly run race. And then 2 on Saturday. 1 in the 132 at Aintree, Richmond Lake. A horse who won this race last year off 142. Back to that same mark. He's 4-1 for Donald McCain. And the 225 at Sandown, a 2 mile handicap hurdle. Knickerbocker Glory for the Skeltons at 8-1 off a mark of 132. Goes very well fresh, likes a bit of dig in the ground, will go from the front, usually suits on the Sandown hurdles track. I think he's got a huge chance. Absolutely
love that. Right, I am going to put my first Cheltenham Ante Post selection up, and by no surprise it is trained by Gordon Elliott. I was looking at the three...
Learn and improve.
I know.
Year.
I was looking at the 3 mile Brown Advisory. And to me, there's no massive standout. Obviously, there's talk of Impere Pass, there's talk of Ballyburn. But at the moment, they're considered Arkle horses. Without them in the market, it's not the deepest division in the slightest.
It's an ordinary race.
And I thought the one horse who impressed me probably most that could go down that route this season so far is Better Days Ahead, who obviously won the Martin Pipe. He then turned up in a beginner's chase against the Supreme winner and beat him quite comfortably, jumped really well, travelled great, looked like he'd stay forever. He's going to go to the 3 mile race, I think, at Christmas at Leopardstown. I really think they could go and win that race. And if he is, I think he's a lot shorter price than 16-1, which he currently is for the Brown Advisory. I'm going to side with him. I think he clearly likes Cheltenham. I think he's going to be keep improving this season. And I do think that we're going to have an absolute A1 Better Days Ahead come the festival. I'm really looking forward to seeing what he can do this season. So for me, he's going to go in as pick 1 in the Ante Post series for the Brown Advisory at 16-1.
I can very much see the point there, so I can see the case, and I can see the way that whole division could slightly fall apart almost to a certain degree, and we haven't seen the likes of Dancing City yet. My first selection is going to be a horse that actually I won on at the November meeting at Cheltenham, and it comes in the cross-country race. And long-time viewers will know that I got my fingers stung a few years ago with a horse called Ajas, who seemingly went into complete disarray. Immediately I mentioned his name, the horse was never seen again.
No.
Unfortunately. But I am going to go down that route again with a French horse in the cross country in Sweet David, who's currently a 12-1 chance for that race. He was ultra impressive in the November race. It's a handicap now at March. I wouldn't have been putting him up if it was like the old conditions, because I think a horse like him would never have a chance. But he was £17 out of the handicap at the November meeting. He was off 140 when his actual mark over in France is 123. He scooted in.
He did.
Like, he jumped for fun. Felix de Giles has got a fantastic record around the cross-country course. I'm sure he will keep the ride as a result. He hasn't got a reassessed mark in England. He'd have to be entered in England to get a reassessed mark, and he hasn't been reassessed in France either. I don't know how they do their handicap system. I think they need to be entered as well. So I'm not sure how much he's going to go up in the weights for that. You'd like to think he'd go up quite a lot.
Yeah, but he's not going to be absolutely crucified from 140 of what he's running off at Cheltenham. Probably high 140s?
Yeah, absolutely. But that would mean that they're raising him £25 from his original mark. So I'd like to think he'd be...
But basically over here, though, off 140, which is what he's running off, I think.
Exactly. You know, so I think he'll be in there, but he'll get a lot of weight from... whether it is a conflated, whether it's a Manila Indo, those types of horses, he'll still be getting in excess of £15-20. He likes the course. He's shown that. He jumps for fun. He's an improving young horse. He's only 5 years old. He'll be 6 in March. And this trainer He's got a bit about him, this Gabriel Leenders. I don't know whether I'm probably butchering his name by saying that, but he's come over a couple of times. He's been a bit bullish and he's gone back with the goods. So I've got a lot to say for him. He's 10, 12 to 1 in an open race. I don't like, you look at the novice hurdles, you could be picking and choosing for years about where horses are going to go. I'm picking a cross-country horse to run in the cross-country race.
There we go. Very much looking forward to seeing all of that happen. And I do agree with you. I think he's got a big chance. I think that this the cross country will change complexion. It won't just go to those really classy, possible older Gold Cup horses. I think it could go to an improving handicapper, which I think he is. So there we go. We do hope you enjoyed this video. Please hit that like button if you did. Do get your questions down below for the column. Do get your questions down below for anything in general. And we'll see you next week.